Tēnā koutou katoa.
Louise Upston.
Tēnā koe e te kaiwhakawā. Tēnā koe e te whare. Rauranga tira mā. Tēnei te mihi ki a koutou I runga I te kōpapa o te rā. Tēnei koutou nā iwi o rangatira o Ngāti Raukawa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It is with the most generous of hearts that I welcome you here to our place, to this place. I'm enormously proud to be your Member of Parliament, and I use that word very carefully and consciously. I acknowledge the previous speeches of Ministers Turia in particular. She is also your Member of Parliament. But I want to reflect in this House today on the journey, because I think probably more uniquely for me in this House is that I've got to walk most of this journey with you. So September 2008 was when you signed your mandate, and I was elected only a couple of months after that. And I don't think I had any idea quite what was in store. And I think if you look at, when I look up in the gallery and I look at who else is here, and I acknowledge both the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, I see Raukawa as the heart of the community. For me, definitely you are the heart of the Taupo electorate. And again, I use that word very deliberately, because every step of the way I have seen you reach out to all the stakeholders, to all of those in the community that have an interest, real, imagined, or everything in between. And I think that has taken enormous courage and generosity. And I think back to the Prime Minister's visit in the end of 2010. And my understanding is that was the very first time a Prime Minister had been on one of your marae. And I know what an enormously proud day it was, and the range and breadth and depth of the community who were there to welcome him, and for you to share that occasion. And that very much speaks to the way you have approached this whole process. I think probably the most significant, Mr. Speaker, was the day that I would say was the Reconciliation Day on the 25th of May 2011. And I must confess, I said to the Minister, what is this day? What happens? What do I have to do? And I wasn't quite sure. And I remember sitting there, hearing your stories. And the Minister spoke about one of those stories in particular, of one of your family members sitting there waiting while the water rose around her. And I remember the very, very powerful story that Mel Mackenzie delivered on behalf of her family, your mother, your grandmother. And I sat there and I was very, very clear I was a representative of the Crown, hearing the stories of the carnage and the damage that had been inflicted on the people of Raukawa. But the thing that stood out for me that day, Mr. Speaker, was how this process heals. And I saw it within a matter of hours. The tears, the anguish, the hurt, the anger being turned very quickly into a generosity, an acceptance and forgiveness. I saw it, I witnessed it, and I felt it. And Mr. Speaker, I really wish that every single New Zealander, as the Prime Minister entered a conversation this week about nationhood and about what our flag might look like, I wish that every single New Zealander could witness that kind of occasion, because to me, that is what will make this nation even greater than it is today. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of that process. You've allowed me every single part of the process, and that is the Raukawa way. The next big occasion, which again was the first, was the signing of your deed at Aotearoa Marae. And that was the day that the Crown, through Minister Finlayson, delivered the formal apology. And, you know, again, I'll be honest. I thought, you know, it's probably a speech. Here's the stuff that, you know, the minister has to say, and, you know, he has to do that lots of times. But, man, that was so wrong. Because what was very clear when he spoke, and it was clear looking out in the faces of Raukawa, was that apology being delivered, but more importantly being accepted. And that is where the generosity of Raukawa comes in. Because when we talk about riches and we talk about wealth, you know, we talk about people and we talk about resources. Raukawa lost both of those significantly. And people say to me, oh, well, you know, why do you, in these treaty settlements, why is there so much money involved? Why do you do that? And I use some very simple examples. And I say to someone, you know, you imagine if you're a farmer, you have some land, you look after your family, and you create wealth from that farm. What happens when you wake up one day and that farm is gone? Then what? Oh, and half your family's gone too. Then what? So, Mr. Speaker, that's what the third reading and the passing of this legislation is for us to complete that part of the journey. And probably there's so many highlights in this process, but I love the day in December 2012 when it was time to sign the ministerial accords. And Raukawa invited me to attend. But more importantly, you invited me to attend with you. And so it was, you know, I think there was some very nervous-looking officials and some very puzzled ministers when they saw Louise Upston, the National MP for Taupo, arriving on the side of Raukawa. But that, to me, said it all, because your belief and your actions and partnership go far beyond anything I've ever witnessed. And knowing the stories and knowing what you have been so generously willing to accept in order to move on really makes that even more powerful. My one regret, as I'm sure it is for those of you in the gallery, is that George isn't here today. The fact that we took the deed for him to sign in his Chiefs jersey is another memory that will never leave me. So to George, to those of Raukawa who can't be here, congratulations. This is a proud day for you all, for us all, and I look forward to every next step of the journey with you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Reno, Chair.